You are in danger. Russian propaganda is after your brain. And it's not a hypothetical threat. Russian propaganda is closer to you than you think. It's right there, inside your computer and smartphone. I'll tell you of 8 methods Russian propaganda uses and will provide one big fat example. We will catch them red-handed. And you'd better watch, because if Russian propaganda succeeds, if it succeeds getting into your brains and does the work as planned, then one day you'll wake up and you'll find yourself in Russia. Howdy, howdy everyone. My name is Konstantin. Welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. As usual, you will not find here any lies, BS, or propaganda. Instead, you will find plenty of truth, common sense, and logic. And emotions too, because hey, I'm a human being after all. Before I start, I'd like to ask you a favor. No, not liking, not subscribing. That'd be nice too. But it's actually a long shot, but hey, you never know. If any of you watching right now knows a Californian comedian, Moz Gabrani, please reach out to me. I really need to get in touch with that guy. Now, to Russian propaganda. This might be the most important message of 2025 for you that I'm delivering. You know, I want to make a confession. I don't like Russian propaganda. A lot. Any propaganda for that matter, but especially Russian propaganda. It's very personal. I was growing up in the 80s, and them no good bums were trying to indoctrinate me since I was about age of 5. When I grew up, I learned the tricks they were using on me. Me and my entire generation, born in the 70s and early 80s. And we firmly said never again when the USSR fell apart. But it's a sad story. We actually failed to prevent the propaganda from being reborn. And under the patronage of Vladimir Putin and his friends, the oligarchs and personal friends, Russian propaganda has risen to a point where now it's even stronger and more skilled than Soviet propaganda. It's forced its way into the brains of Russian people and now ruling the brains of most in Russia unconditionally. Russian propaganda has made Russians believe that their values are better than the values of the others. That Russia is defending itself from NATO on the territory of Ukraine. From NATO and from the West, and Ukraine is just a proxy. That everyone out there wants to destroy Russia's sovereignty and steal Russia's riches, whatever they are. That Putin is the best leader Russians can ever have. That the interests of the state are above their own interests. And other ridiculous lies. One interesting observation about Russian propaganda: it's not an agency, an organization, or a ministry of truth. No. It's a very sophisticated system of organizations, church, politicians, authorities, media, large companies, state-owned corporations, law enforcement, federal employees, all interconnected and combined. They are controlled by certain people deep inside the state who they steer. They are using all resources available to them, constantly projecting the narratives into people's brains 24/7. And that's how they hear the message. Have more babies on every corner in Russia nowadays. It's just one of the examples. The church, the school, the lawmakers, the schools, the higher education and regular schools, the lawmakers, the ministries, the hospitals, they're all projecting the narrative, have more babies. And that's one of the most popular narratives now in Russia, and the news come out that I usually report in Friday news update and summary every Friday. There's plenty of news about have more babies on every corner now. But the narratives are actually not born equal. Some narratives are more important than others, and those that are more important, they're given priorities. And some narratives are aimed at Russians, and some are aimed at foreigners. Russian propaganda is divided into the domestic and the international. And this brings us to today's story: how Russian propaganda is trying to get inside your heads and manipulate you. Now, let's get straight to the message. In the first 3 years of the war, Russian propaganda was busy with Russian people. Its main concern was domestic brainwashing. The agenda was how to marry Russian people with the idea of the war in Ukraine and make it look normal. To make Russians accept deaths of their relatives, accept deaths of their neighbors, the Ukrainians, how to accept dropping living standards, how to accept stripping them of basic human rights, things like that. That's what Russian propaganda was trying to infuse into the brains of the Russians. And that has been successfully achieved. Russian people are 100% controlled now. And the propaganda has a bigger agenda, a grandiose one. Now it needs to normalize Russia in the eyes of people in the West, to justify, to acquit Russia, to make it look like a normal country, not the aggressor, but the victim of the world government and the deep state. And even more grandiose goal is to break the West apart, to sow chaos in the minds of the Westerners and just destroy their lives, destroy their way of life. In order to do that, Russian propaganda is using all the methods that they experimented and finessed on Russian people. Now, I want you to open your eyes and try to find out what they're doing, and I'll give you a couple examples. We'll jump into the 8 methods of what Russian propaganda is using, trying to indoctrinate and manipulate and confuse you. And I'll give you the examples. But before that, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, everyone who's watching right now, everyone who's a part of Inside Russia community. Thank you for watching, for liking, for commenting, for interacting. Thank you for the messages, for your prayers, for your love. Thank you for coffees that you buy me at buymeacoffee.com. Thank you for Patreon and PayPal. I give you a promise that despite being demonetized by Google and not earning anything from this channel, I continue my stand against Russian government, against unfairness, against the war, against propaganda, and I will continue telling you the truth. And you have my word on that. Thank you very much. Now, I'm very serious now, okay? I want you to remember what I will say now. Remember this and try to identify these methods used against you in your lives. Method number 1: disinformation and fake news. Oh, they love that. They use fabricated stories, creating false news and selling you distorted versions of events. They use misleading headlines using emotionally charged or clickbait titles to manipulate your attention. They use fake sources, websites mimicking legitimate Western media or think tanks. For example, promoting false stories about Ukrainian corruption or NATO aggression to justify Russia's actions. Method number 2: amplification via social media. They use botnets and troll farms. With coordinated accounts, they just push narratives across Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Telegram, and TikTok. They use algorithm gaming, using spamming hashtags, comments, or keywords to trend up certain topics. They use memes and viral content to feed you easy to share visual content that subtly reinforces Kremlin's positions. For example, RT, Russia Today, content shared widely by seemingly Western users or influencers. In reality, seemingly is the keyword here. In reality, Russian trolls created in troll farms. Method number 3: they use useful idiots and Western proxies. They use Western fringe voices. Russia often boosts far left, far right, anti globalist, or conspiratorial voices that question NATO, the EU, or mainstream media. They use influencers and academicians that they buy or influence in some way. Some are knowingly or unknowingly spread Russian narratives in the name of alternative viewpoints or peace advocacy. For example, those promoting Western commentators who claim that the US provoked Russia into war. Method number 4: exploiting existing social divisions. They use racial tensions, COVID-19 skepticism, immigration issues, and culture wars. Russian propaganda doesn't always promote pro-Russian content. It often sows chaos and confusion into the minds of foreigners. They use whataboutism, deflecting criticism of Russia by pointing to Western flaws, and there are many flaws. For example, what about Iraq, the United States invading Iraq? Oh, Russia did the same. What about riots in California? What about ICE agents as violent as Russian police? You see it right in front of your eyes on TV, as violent as the KGB officers. That's whataboutism. Their goal is to undermine moral authority of the West and create cynicism. They want you to be cynical. And the examples here, well, just look around and you see dozens of examples of Russian propaganda work all around you. Just open YouTube. Method number 5: state media in multiple languages. They use state media, RT, Sputnik, and other outlets where they provide alternative news in English, German, French, Spanish, and other languages. They present themselves as anti mainstream, appealing to distrustful or alternative minded Western audiences. They use this tactic: appear professional and impartial while pushing selective truths or outright lies. Method number 6: exploiting conspiracy communities. They use QAnon, anti vaccine, anti globalist groups. These online ecosystems are often targeted because of their distrust of official narratives. And sometimes the distrust is for a good reason. But Russian propaganda is skilled to use that opportunity. They use narrative blending, combining Western conspiracies with pro Russian angles. For example, suggesting that the West provoked the war in Ukraine as a part of a globalist plan, a plan of the deep state. Method number 7: legal and political influence. They fund non government organizations, political parties, or media outlets through covert, or semi covert means operations. Any one of you remembers Tenet Media caught red handed accepting Kremlin's money? It just happened last November. Do you follow that story? How Tenet Media is supposedly getting off the hook, being caught red handed? They discredit opposition by using compromat, leaked emails, or conspiracy theories. For example, support for Eurosceptic or anti NATO politicians. And method number 8: emotional and moral appeals. They use victimhood, framing, portraying Russia as a besieged fortress defending traditional values against Western decadence and consumerism. They use humanitarian inversion, suggesting that Russia is liberating or protecting populations. For example, Russian speaking population in Ukraine or population of Syria from fundamentalists. The goal of Russian propaganda is not always to convince, but to confuse, to divide, and to paralyze. When people don't know what to believe, when we all wake up and feeling like we're living in a mad world and everything is spinning around us, then we become passive and cynical. And that benefits Russia's regime. Confused, divided, outraged, paralyzed, not thinking critically, not using common sense and logic. They want you to become that. You are their target now. They have plenty of resources and plenty of time. They are done with the Russians. They have moved on to you. Please remember that. Please know that. Remember my words and watch for their methods. You will see them in your lives. Now, friends, I want you to show something pretty incredible. I want you to show an example of how Russian propaganda works. Okay? I want you to see something. Before I turn it on, I would like to ask you, if you liked my message, please hit the like button. That helps to deliver the message to more people. I'd really appreciate that. Thank you. So now, this is how they work in real life, in real time now. This is Forum of the Future 2050. This forum is a gathering of different influential people, famous people, foreigners and Russians, where certain things are discussed. It is sponsored by Russian state, and you will see the goals of the forum, the discussions, and you'll see the speakers. First, we're talking about discussed questions or discussions. And I want you to project these discussions, these proposed topics, onto what I have been telling you today. Discussion question number 1. Fighting for souls and minds. Ideology of sovereign Russia. Discussion question number 2. New great powers concert. Russian foreign policy in the second quarter of the 21st century. Discussion question number 3. Wars of the future. Gamification of war. Discussion question number 4. Russian space. Race for Mars. Number 5. Question number 5. Special operation demography. How to ensure an increase in the birth rate. Make more babies. Question number 6. New migration policy strategy. Organizational recruitment. Russian kafala. Russia as an ark of salvation. Question number 7. Technological development. Robotization instead of mass migration. Number 8. Spatial development from megacities to one-story Russia. Question number 9. Digital sovereignty. AI in the service of Russia. And question number 10. Patriotic education. The image of the hero of our time. Now, friends, this to me looks pretty fascinating because they don't even they don't try to mask what they talk about. Okay, it's out there pretty open. Fighting for souls and minds. And that's not just Russian, the souls and minds of Russian people. That's your souls and minds as well. Ideology of sovereign Russia. Gamification of war. Wars of the future. Special operation demography. Russia as an ark of salvation. AI in the service of Russia. Now, this is exactly the stuff that I've been telling you about, the methods that they use. Now, who are the speakers? There's wonderful, fantastic, professional, famous speakers that have been invited to attempt and speak and discuss at this forum. Who are they? Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Engineer, businessman, gem dealer, father of Elon Musk, Errol Musk. Konstantin Malafeev, the head of Tsargrad. Dmitry Simes, Channel 1 presenter, professor at MGIMO. George Galloway, British politician, public figure. Interesting. George Galloway. It's incredible. Whoa! Who do we have here, my friends? Alex Jones, American political commentator, host of the Alex Jones Show, owner of Infowars.com and Prison Planet. Alex has finally showed his true colors. Coming to Moscow. Alex, how much have they paid you? um, Pierre Antoine, French author and political analyst specializing at metapolitics, geopolitics, and philosophy. And Russian politicians, senators, public figures. More Russians. Actors, TV presenters, politicians. More Russians. The names that you know. And by the way, this priest right here, he's been a guest of my news reports, well, the newsmakers. You know, I quoted him so many times, at least half a dozen times now. He makes very outrageous statements on behalf of church, Russian church. And who do we have here? Larry Johnson, former CIA and US State Department analyst. Incredible. Tim Kirby, American born Russian journalist and radio host. What do you think, friends? This distinguished people all came to Moscow. You know what? I believe that some even came for free. Okay. I believe that some few have not been paid. Okay. They came for ideological reasons and so forth. I think we missed a very important person. Hang on one second. Of course, Jeffrey Sachs, the president of UNSDSN. A very famous person in the West, a professor of a very large school. Wow, just wow. So, this is how Russian propaganda works. It creates events inside Russia and it brings different kinds of people. And the Westerners as well, and famous people. Do you know what the last week's main topic in Russian news was? Musk is in Moscow. Elon Musk's father arrived to Moscow. He loved the hotel that he stayed at. He loved, he answered how he was bringing up Elon Musk, how he created the genius. Oh, he loved the Russian food, Russian restaurants. He's ecstatic. He feels like a czar. And I'm going to give you a more detailed report on Friday. I have some footage of interviews of Musk Sr. The guy who fathered a child with his stepdaughter came to Moscow, came to Russia to teach Russians high morals and values. Okay? But Russia has organized this event, a major, major event, and it is selling it to Russians. Look, the best foreigners, the best Westerners come to Russia. They don't hesitate. They don't mind. They come and share their knowledge, their opinions. They speak, they discuss topics that we find very important. That's what they're selling inside Russia. And through a number of different media. They're selling it to the rest of the world. And you know what? A lot of people are buying because many don't really dig deep. They don't go for the truth. They just get the surface. Oh, Musk's father is in Moscow? Huh, interesting, you know? Jeffrey Sachs is in Moscow? Ah, wow. American professor, you know, all this former CIA agent, this guy, and things like that. And they get impressed, and their opinion of Russia changes a little bit. That's how Russian propaganda works. So we don't even have to investigate anything. It's right there on the surface. Their methods, how they work, and what they do. Friends, I hope that you remember that well. And I hope next time you see one of their methods near you, in your smartphone, on your computer, you remember what I told you today. Be careful. Stay sane. Don't throw logic and common sense away. Use it all the time. Please do it. Do it for yourself. Do it for your children. And certainly do it for your countries. Otherwise, you wake up one day and you'll find yourself in your country that looks like Russia. I know, I've been there before. It's not pretty. Now, thank you so very much for this message. Before I sign off, I would like to just remind you that if you want to stay informed on everything Russia, then please consider subscribing to Patreon account of Inside Russia, because there, 9 news every day, 6 days a week, 54 news every week. I personally carefully select the news that I find important, and with my commentaries, I post them on Inside Russia. And I also do daily snippets, something that is bigger than a news and smaller than a live stream. And every day, my thoughts, my views on events, on developments, I make them available to patrons. So consider becoming a patron and becoming an expert on what's currently happening in Russia. Thank you so very much for coming. I will see you all tomorrow. Carthago delenda est.